Welcome to I Said What I Said, a sports podcast giving you opinions not heard anywhere else. I'm your host, Brad Wakai, coming to you from Brooklyn, New York. And that is my co-host, Tyson Gentry, coming to you from Missoula, Montana. Tyson, today we thought it was going to be a somber podcast. We thought we were going to have a lot of time before we start covering the NBA Finals in detail. But the Celtics stave off elimination. They're alive, just barely holding on. So we got to talk about them. But again, we got to get into what happened with the Lakers. And we'll have plenty of time to talk about the Nuggets as we get ready for the NBA Finals. But we wanted to focus a little bit more on the Lakers today and how they got eliminated, some potential next steps for them. So let's start in there, Tyson. I mean, we both expected the Nuggets to advance. We both said the Nuggets would have matchups that we don't think the Lakers could counter. Doing it in the sweep fashion was not something I had on my bingo card.
No, that was ridiculously impressive. And impressive because like the Lakers didn't roll over at all throughout the whole thing. It was just the Nuggets, like, you're going to keep taking this. We're going to keep giving it to you, and there's nothing really you can do about it. This team is really freaking good, dude. Like, closer to all-time teams than I'm willing to admit at this moment.
I think especially when you look at who's on the team too, and you're like, no way we can consider them all. And it's like Jokic, you're like, well, this is the first time they've been, past the Western Conference Finals. Same with Jamal Murray, and it's like he's been hurt. Then you're like, okay, but in their own respects, when they're on, they look amazing. Like you're like top end players. But then you got Bruce Brown, undrafted guy, contributor. Michael Porter Jr., who's supposed to be the guy, but his injuries and everything. Oh man, it's kind of up and down. Then you just look at, you got Jeff Green on the team, Christian Brown, the rookie,
the all-time greatest high school highlight tape ever in Aaron Gordon.
Oh, good point. And he had a big game 4 to close that out. And so it's interesting. And, KCP, who's been kind of passed around the league, like, oh, we'll throw him into a trade and things like that. And he stepped up for this team with a huge role. I think you're right. And LeBron and AD, or LeBron said in his presser, this is the best team that myself and AD have faced since I've come over to the Lakers. And we've been a duo. That is high praise coming from him. And I think when you look at it, he may not be wrong.
Well, who would even really be the competition in that exact scenario? Like the Suns that beat them a couple of years ago, this Nuggets team gets them out of there pretty quick. Like the Warriors teams, this Nuggets team, I mean, we'll talk about it in 2 weeks before we start saying they could beat last year's Warriors or anything like that. We're not huge fans of doing that here, but I will say, like, you got a guy that's 30, 15, and 10 every single time he walks off the bus. I've never seen that, ever. And so triple doubles are dime a dozen these days, and Russell Westbrook made it so they don't count and blah, blah, blah. He's doing it at the highest level easily. Like not even hardly breaking a sweat. At the end of the first half every game, he's 3/4 of the way there.
Just broke Wilt Chamberlain's all-time record for moves in a single playoffs.
And that should tell you everything you need to know. Everything you need. He broke Wilt Chamberlain's record. How many people, living or dead, have ever done that?
Not many. He has some records in Wilt Chamberlain that are going to stand the test of time. Like it's just insane what that guy was able to do. And Jokic was able to knock off one of them, and he still has an NBA Finals to go, Tyson.
At least
whether
4.
It's against exactly whether it's against the Heat or the Celtics, there's some pretty favorable matchups for him that he's going to be able to put up some triple doubles.
He's going to kill those guys.
All right, but we got plenty more to talk about with the Nuggets going forward. But we want to talk about the Lakers and just let's talk about what's moving the next steps here, because under roster control next year is only Anthony Davis, LeBron, Max Christie, and one other person
Vanderbilt.
I'm missing. And Vanderbilt. Or is he? Are you sure he's not a free agent?
I
see if I can pull that up.
I got Jared Vanderbilt, Max Christie, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis in front of me.
Okay, so Vanderbilt,
Malik Beasley, and Mo Bamba have non-guaranteed deals.
Okay, and because I know Hachimura and Austin Reeves are unrestricted free agents, so they're going to be or they're free agents in some aspect, but
they're restricted.
Not, they are restricted. Okay, so they'll have an opportunity to match an offer sheet there. There is going to be some interesting things going on in Los Angeles, I think, when it comes to building this roster. Because, Tyson, let's be honest. As great as LeBron James was in that first half of the elimination game, he just ran out of gas in the second half. And I can't fault him for that, right? Like, you're 38 years old and you have someone like LeBron doing that in the first half. That's supposed to, like, keep you afloat, and then you pass the torch on to the rest of these role players. And that just didn't happen for him in this game. And as great as Austin Reeves was in these playoffs, can he really be the third guy in a championship team with aging LeBron? I think there's major questions about how they want to build this thing. Do you put all your eggs into the Anthony Davis basket? Do you kind of start looking around being like, man, are there anybody else out there we should trade for and maybe they can become our number one? Like, how would you look at this?
Well, first of all, it's the Lakers. So we know we're getting Dame Lillard rumors. We're going to get Kyrie rumors. Like, you name a superstar in the NBA. We'll probably get freaking Nikola Jokic rumors or Giannis or whoever, because that's the way the offseason works. The Lakers are at the point now, Brad, in their LeBron James experience that every team seems to get to. And I'm the biggest LeBron fan in the world, but like it's pretty crystal clear. Kind of doesn't overstay his welcome, but he starts forcing his hand a little bit too much and it becomes exhausting to deal with because it's Rob Pelinka's fault this roster is not good enough. It's Darvin Ham's fault that the coaching wasn't good enough, and all that stuff might be valid. But they wouldn't be put in these positions if it wasn't like, hey, you knew the deal when I signed the dotted line. Like, we don't need picks. I don't need any of this. We're getting my guys. And a lot of times he has a tough time acknowledging when one of his guys, one of the guys you go out and get for LeBron James, doesn't perform. And that wasn't really the case with like a D'Angelo Russell or a Dennis Schroeder in this playoffs. But you could say goodbye to those guys. They're not coming back. Lonnie Walker's not coming back. And so the difference between the Denver Nuggets, like around the edges with the rest of the roster versus the Los Angeles Lakers, it's night and day. But it's because one got to walk here and the other one had to sprint from, the word go.
I think the priority should be keeping Austin Reeves. Like, to me, that's a piece that you can build around. And whether he ever becomes on a nightly basis what he was able to do in the playoffs, like, that's to be seen. But at least he was doing it in the biggest moments, right? Like, he's not on a bad team on like Charlotte or the Rockets, right? Where he's just putting up gaudy numbers in games that don't matter. Like, these are big time pressure situation moments. And Austin Reeves at times is the best player on the floor. I think that's a priority. I think somebody really is going to offer him a lot of money.
He's going to get $100 million.
Lakers are going to have to stomach and think about if that's going to be the route they want to go and actually look towards the future for once. Like, Rob Pelinka comes out and said, I want to keep this young core together. Kyle Kuzma, who was a part of that first young core, he's like, I've heard that from the Lakers before, because that's really the reality of everything. So I do think Austin Reeves would be my number one priority for the Lakers to lock up this offseason.
Well, it sounds, Brad, like they need to lock up LeBron James for this offseason, because for the first time in 20 years, we are getting the Tom Brady treatment. The will he, won't he, is LeBron James going to hang it up? And I said this to you before, and this will be my official stance till the end of time. You're kidding yourself if you don't think this guy wants a farewell or go a send-off party. Like, you're outside of your mind if you think that he doesn't look at the way Kobe got received or whoever else in there last year, and he doesn't want that too. No judgment. Like, I understand it. I'd love the adulation of 100,000 people every town that I go to. He's not hanging it up. Dude, we're going to know when LeBron James is going to retire, probably like 12 to 24 months before LeBron James actually hangs it up. He just lost the Western Conference Finals. You expect him to be in a good mood. Like, I can't wait to get back here with these guys, blah, blah, blah. Man, he's pissed. And so what do you do when you're pissed? It's like, he's telling the organization, if we don't get better, I'm done.
That press conference that he had was one of the most interesting post-game press
conferences. Kind of sounds like
Bronny
doesn't want to play with him, huh?
I don't know.
Kind of sounds like his kid doesn't want to play with him.
My thing is, like, are we sure he's even a one and done type of kid? You know what I mean?
No.
Like Bronny James, like, that's the thing. And he's done a very good job of becoming this prospect. And he's a good player. Like, don't get me wrong. But is he like one of these guys that you look at and you're like, man, this guy's a surefire one and done? No. So we're just like, well, Bronny's got 1 year at USC and then LeBron and him will play. It's like, I don't even know if that's the case. Like, let's be honest here. Like, USC is going to have a good roster next year. I don't know how much of the floor he sees.
A genuine 40-year-old LeBron James worth taking a guy that might be 16th on your board at 6 so you can sign 40-year-old LeBron James in free agency? Like, the leverage isn't where it was when he first started making these comments like a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, so maybe, he's 38 right now, going to be 39. I mean, by the time Bronny's eligible and going to be playing, I mean, we're talking about a 40-year-old basketball player here, and someone apparently, with a foot injury, apparently that was, hurting him for a while. Kept it up in the playoffs, and that was one of the reasons why had some inconsistent nights, things like that. That's at least according to his camp here. But I agree with you. You know, we're going to know when he's going to retire. He's not just going to be like, oh, this is the end. I'm going to go, woe is me in the press for a little bit. And, well, guys, I'm hanging it up. Like, no, we're going to have to give him this farewell tour. And, you know, he's one of the all-time greats. We definitely should as a basketball community. But that press conference was super interesting to me, Tyson, because normally after he loses and gets eliminated in the playoffs, he's extremely guarded, extremely, like, salty, you know, pissed. You can see it on his face, just like, you know, how he has those, you know, like scrunching up his face, like, ah. And then in that press conference, it didn't feel like it was him versus the media where it is sometimes. Like, he was, like, giving insight. He was, like, welcoming into the conversation. And I was like, I've never heard LeBron after an elimination game kind of react like that. I don't know if that was your thought watching that too.
Well, I'm hoping, and my first thought and what I hope is the same thing. I just am hoping this is like, remember when Kobe made the switch from like, I'm not telling anybody anything to like, I'll tell you whatever you want, like uncut right here. Here it is. I'm not playing the game anymore. I'm hoping that's what it is with LeBron James. You never know, and I doubt it. But like, the league would be such a better place if he just decided to answer these questions genuinely and like let people, by all accounts, everybody that seems to have played with this guy loves him. But then he gets on, you know, the microphone. He doesn't ever do himself any favors. Like, since he was 18, if this dude was good with the media, the GOAT debate's been over for 5 years, right? But I'm hoping that's what it is. I doubt it. Like I said, I think he was just like a little confused because there is no clear next step for him or for the organization, where in years past, like, he's looking around like, I was still the best player on the court even though we lost. And this time he was third most of the time, second for like 40 minutes maybe total in the series, and third and fourth when Jamal Murray got it cooking.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, let's finish off like next steps before we get into the Celtics. I mean, are they going to be able, Tyson, are they going to be able to become a contender next season? Because I think both you and I thought, hey, they're going to be eliminated by the Grizz. That didn't happen. Hey, they're going to be eliminated by the Warriors.
No,
you know, that didn't happen.
We were anti-Grizz.
I was pro-Grizz before the series, and I saw them, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. This is the Grizzlies. I can't believe I bought in. But, you know, I made my prediction at the time. It felt like this was a run for the Lakers that was like, wow, look at the Lakers. They're making a deep run. Like, it was almost Cinderella and March Madness-ish. You know, we're like, wow, look at this team. I can't believe they made it this far. And that was me with the Lakers. Now, I could be off because I predicted correctly that the Lakers would be bad the past 4 years. So I'm like, no, it's the same Lakers team. Everybody's just buying into it. But it felt like there are like some bones to this roster. But with this free agency, so many things could change. And I just don't know if I trust the Lakers to continue to go in the right direction and build off of this.
Well, a lot of that too was where they ended up in the bracket, because if they start out with Denver, you're done. They start out with Phoenix, you're done.
Right.
Start out with the Clippers, they're probably done. So they got to go Grizz into a Warriors team that couldn't win on the road and didn't really have the juice this year. That's neither here nor there. That's the way the NBA playoffs work. It pisses me off at the end of every season when it's like, they didn't play anybody. Everybody was hurt. And it's like, that's every champion for the last 60 seasons. There are no real next steps. To me, like, whatever they do, it will come at a little bit of a, you know, when you're surprised, but then you think about it and you're not. That's how I'm going to feel with whatever the Lakers do next. Because when I look at this roster, like, a teardown seems out of the question, but if they did it, I'd be like, oh, that makes sense. Beefing back up seems out of the question because they don't have the assets, but they found a way to do it before. Signing Austin Reeves to Tyler Hero contract, I would never do, but if the Lakers do, I could see it. So I don't know where they're going next, but they're stuck, dude. Like, you're not getting by Denver for a while.
Is Kyrie Irving going to be a Laker next year?
No.
Man, LeBron says he wants to play with them.
Kyrie Irving isn't signing anywhere till March.
Probably not. But, man, I would not be shocked. It's like one of those things like, I'm surprised he's on the Lakers. I'm really not surprised he's on the Lakers.
That's true. My first reaction was no, and then I thought about it. Yeah, I got you.
It's like that one meme where the woman tries that, and she's like, no. No. You know what I'm talking about? It's like, this is terrible. Well, it's LeBron and Kyrie. No, this is horrible.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the Celtics, because in the first half, it looked like we're going to have two sweeps. First time since they've gone to a conference finals format that we're going to have two sweeps, Tyson. First time since 1971. That would have been absurd. And I think Adam Silver would have been like, woo, man, TV deals are getting pissed. But the Celtics in the second half rallied. They forced the game 5 back in Boston. They win that. They go down to Miami for game 6, and it's a best of 2 game series. It's extremely interesting when you kind of think about things. We'll get into that, but I was surprised by the lackluster attitude that the Celtics had in the second part of that first quarter. Like, they came out swinging, of course, like, guys, don't let us win one. Woo! And then it got tough, and they're like, man, this is kind of hard. And that was how they played the entire rest of the first half. I'm like, these guys are just going to Cancun, man. Like, they don't want to play. And the second half, they proved me wrong. Like, they just came out and started hitting shots, and they defended. And I was impressed by how they responded in the second half, Tyson. It was about time to see the Celtics team perform like that. That's all I was thinking.
Well, it felt like the second half was the first time that they knew or could feel like, oh, we're more talented than these guys by like a lot. Like it's not close. If you go player for player down the roster where we run into abnormalities is in the attitudes and in the coaching and things like that, team building and organizational culture, and we all know the stuff the Heat are good at. But what Boston did was basically just like the shots went in. That was a lot of it. That was the first time Jason Tatum has had like a reliable second half in this series where it's just like, oh yeah, that's Jason Tatum. What do you have? 11 points in the fourth, which is like as many as he had games 1 through 3. It's too little, too late, brother. Like we could be sitting here talking about how cool. Maybe we will be. Maybe in a week we're back on here talking. They're 3-3. We're going to a game 7. Not out of the question, but it's never happened. The team that's been down 3-0 has never come back to win a conference finals. It seems ridiculous that we're even having the conversation, but everybody has been on Boston's nuts for like 2.5 or 3 years. Actually, really, since remember the Jason Tatum's 19 years old meme? Like that's when it started. But like it's been pretty drastic, and the whole time like they've had this attitude. So like don't let us get one. Like if we win one, whatever. Then win one at home at the beginning of the series. Win one,
Right.
Win game 3 when you need it. I don't care. Talk all that shit you want. You are down 3-1.
Down 3-1, and nobody's ever come back from down 3-0. So, Tyson, we got to talk about this. Legitimately, what are the chances they pull a miracle here? And somebody's going to do it at some point, right?
Yeah,
like
it'll happen.
somebody's going to do it. Like it's happened in hockey. It's only happened once in baseball. Like somebody's going to pull it off. Now, is this the time that we can see it? It's a vulnerable Heat team who has shot the lights out. Like, is there going to be regression that comes at some point? Maybe. Like it's got to at some point regress back to the mean here. Like Caleb Martin turned into Steph Curry. Bam Adebayo, he had a horrible game 4, but he's had a good playoff run. Jimmy Butler turned into Michael Jordan. Like they just took a next step here. Like they evolved. And like a Pokemon, right? They just evolved to the next stage when it hit the playoffs. It got a little bigger and better. And if the Celtics are able to win this next game, right? They're back at home. They just hit threes. Like they're going to have that energy is going to be insane. Game 6 in Miami, that kind of feels like a game 7, right? Like if they win that one and go back to Boston, and Boston's going to be what? Like an 8 to 10 point favorite at home in that series. Like, do you actually think the Celtics can pull this off?
No, I don't. I maybe 5%. It's non-zero because everything's non-zero when it comes to sports. Anything could happen. Dude, if they go into game 7, if they're 3-3 and they have all the momentum in the world, the other team still has Jimmy Butler. And I know they have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown is lucky that man gets to sign for $215 or $45 million or whatever it is this offseason, because he's showing everybody who he is in the playoffs. We talk about this guy as the most talented, maybe the most talented, like 2 guard or 3, depending on the night, what he's playing in the league. Like everything he does is pure. He's a freak athlete. He's really good on defense, all this stuff. Dude, he's a chucker. He's always going to be a chucker. I have a hard time. And it's not because he's taking 15 shots here in Boston or 20 shots a night or whatever he wants to put up, but it's because if you drop Jason Tatum off in Houston, Jason Tatum's shot numbers maybe go up 2-3 attempts a game. You drop Jaylen Brown off in Houston, his numbers, he's shooting 15 more times. Like that's the way he wants to play. I think that it's a loss if they lose the series. When they lose the series, it's going to be a huge loss for the Celtics. But we kind of just figured out, the J&J tandem got to the finals, lose to an 8 seed. Is this, you're hitching your wagon to this for a decade?
I agree with you. I don't think they can do it just because of the fact that nobody's ever done it. Like I just keep saying that, and I do believe somebody eventually will do it at some point, but not when the coaching mismatch is this big.
It's huge.
It's huge. I mean, listen, I do feel bad for Missoula. I know people are shitting on him, but let's be fair to him for a second here. He stepped into a situation where they were in the finals last year, and he was expected as the first year guy who's never been a head coach. Oh, now you need to make this team win a championship.
The circumstances of how he got the job were weird.
Right. And so I when I'm looking at it like that, I'm like, we're being a little harsh on the guy in terms of like all fairness. Like, hey, you're really good at finance. Go run JP Morgan. You know what I mean? Like that's basically what it is. And it's going to be hard for anybody to do that. Like, so it just seems crazy to me that we're just like, he's horrible. He's horrible. Like he has to grow still. But when we're talking about it right now in this series, the level between Spoelstra and Missoula is just an insane gap.
He doesn't do himself any favors. Like some of these post-game quotes are bad. And like some of them are just, I mean, but that's the other part is who cares? I'm sure the team's not listening. Although Boston has maybe some maturity issues, to put it that way, amongst some of the players as far as things that we've seen in the past. I mean, Al Horford's cooked. Like you have to ask Al Horford to be really good now for 3 games in a row. You have to ask Robert Williams to be good for 3 games in a row, whoever it is. Like it's a bunch of guys who rely on each other night in and night out, and now they have to go be the man because Miami's guys aren't going anywhere. Like they had a bad game 4, and it cost them, and they're sitting on the bench laughing, having a good time. Like it's jokes. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. Whereas that happens in other situations and organizations, you don't feel as confident. And it's so weird because we shit on playoff Jimmy all the time because it's a meme at this point. It's funny.
Right. It's just the notion, right?
Yes. But this is real.
Oh, yeah.
Like this is impressive. And it's not like his numbers aren't freaking you out. Like look at Jimmy Butler's best box scores from the playoffs. You can find 5 guys in the playoffs right now that have done that a handful of times. It's just like it's a Terminator. That's how the whole team is. It's like we're just going to keep coming. Like the intensity is going to stay at 100. Whether it's Duncan Robinson not being able to guard anybody, he's still out there, grinding, trying. And not for nothing, like this is no Tyler Hero. Like this team could be freaky right now, and this is just kind of who they've become. Like we're going to fight you in Boston. They won a round.
No Tyler Hero, no Victor Oladipo as well. And,
you see his outfit last night?
I didn't. No, I missed it.
Oh, it was bad. We're not even going to show it to the people on YouTube. He looked like he just got out of the shower or something. He had like an old lady cap on. It was the whole thing.
Really? I'm going to have to Google that then. But here we go. I'll close on this for you. Kind of moving the Celtics next steps because you talked about, Jaylen Brown potentially leaving. But FanDuel has the odds that the Boston Celtics win the East at plus 210. Giving them a roughly an implied odds of 32% here. 32%.
That's a lot.
You give them less?
Yeah.
Me too.
32% is a lot, especially when considering they have to win 3 in a row. Because then if they win, it goes up to 50%. And they're down 3-2. And then by those odds, they have a 75% chance or so to win a game 7 if it were to ever get that point, which is fair. But it's just not. It's not going to get there. And the betting markets aren't exactly the best place to check when it comes to respect for the Miami Heat.
No, definitely not. And God, man, the books are just like beholden to all their Celtics numbers. Like they just can't help themselves,
They've been hemorrhaging cash since the beginning of the NBA playoffs. You think there would be a correction there?
You would think. Okay, let's move into this to close the show. And you mentioned it, Jaylen Brown. There's some murmurs. He's not really happy in Boston, and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have done a good job of being like, well, we really like playing with each other. We like playing in this team structure. And then there's still some whispers, man, Jaylen Brown may want out of here. Jaylen Brown may want to do his own thing. If you had to pick one or the other, I think it's obvious that you pick Jason Tatum. He's a better player overall. I think his ceiling is much higher than what Jaylen Brown provides. But if you're going to say goodbye to Jaylen Brown, there's going to be major holes that they're going to have to fill, and it's not going to be through Malcolm Brogdon, who I like but is limited. It's not through Derek White, who I like but again is limited and doesn't provide you that upside. I just don't know. Maybe they go get Chris Middleton, in this free agency period, just do a swap for a swap. But again, I'd rather have Jaylen Brown, and I know you mentioned that the JJ type of thing here, Jason and Jaylen, it's gotten you to the NBA Finals. Is this an Oklahoma City Thunder thing that we're looking at here, Tyson? We had Russ and we had KD.
Maybe it's different because, like, I don't actually. Well, they don't have three, so that's a good way to look at it. But it also feels like this team has only been together for a handful of years, but it feels like, we're going on year 15 of this marriage between these two. I always go back to when two guys come in at pretty much the same time, who both want the ball in their hands, want to be kind of the guy, and that thing gets sorted out not through coaches or through front office or whatever. Jason Tatum took the ball out of Jaylen Brown's hands. Like, I'm better than you. I'm getting the last shot. I think Jaylen Brown won't be happy anywhere he plays. That's kind of just the vibe that I get from listening to him with the media and kind of the way he carries himself. He seems, like a fine guy or whatever. But I think that Jaylen Brown thinks he's a lot more. I think he views himself like a top 5 guy, when in reality he might just be Paul George too. There's nothing wrong with being Paul George too. It's just it took Paul George 10 years of his career to realize, like, oh yeah, I'm the 2. And by that point, there's no winning to be done. Like, you missed the window. And he seems fine in that role, but it's just, if they were to get off of him, you're not going to be better. And you can't send him in the East because you don't want to do the Chris Middleton swap, because then you don't want to deal with Brown and Giannis for the next 5-6 seasons. Who in the West is available that plays similarly, or in a, like, Dame Lillard would be fun. It's probably not going to work great on the court with the way the Celtics are constructed.
The defense would be
it'd be horrible. And so for next steps, I mean, last year I thought if this team I think I said it on here, if they add Malcolm Brogdon, this team's going to win the finals. They added Malcolm Brogdon, and they're about to get gentlemen swept by an 8 seed. I don't know.
It's tough. They're in a tough situation and you're looking at Robert Williams too, who's regressed from last year. I think his injuries are starting to catch up a bit. I mean, in spurts he can be great, but he wasn't the same dominant force, that probably should have won Defensive Player of the Year a couple years ago, or I guess it was last year. If not, I don't think Marcus Smart should have won that. Still tweaks me out. I think it should have been Bam, but whatever. Marcus Smart, he got hot in the second half, but he's continued to play more inconsistently. And you're just kind of going down the roster, and yes, it's deep, and yes, it's solid. It's not well constructed in the way that the Nuggets are.
It's square holes or square pegs, round hole is kind of what it feels like with some of these dudes, like coming off the bench. It's like, what you're putting this dude, you're putting somebody who's supposed to be a microwave or a floor general or whatever, and this is the role you get to play. And it's right. Look at how the second unit plays from one night to the next. It almost feels like they're not totally sure what they're supposed to be doing.
It's interesting. A lot of it has to do with coaching. A lot of it has to do with how things are set up. Like, maybe they're playing that way on purpose. Maybe that's what they're comfortable doing. Like, we don't know. We're not in the locker. We're just speculating from the outside in, like what we've seen the past few years when it comes to the Boston Celtics. And, this has been a successful run, though. I think that's what people may look over. It's been successful with Tatum and Brown. Like, if that's the 76ers, and I'm contending every single year like that, I'm a happy fan. Now, does it get frustrating when you can't get over the edge and kind of get to that mountaintop? Sure. But you're still in contention. And I'm curious to see if the Celtics and Brad Stevens, who's now running the front office, if they're willing to take a step back and be, kind of what Miami was, a 7 seed, an 8 seed, but be able to kind of build a culture and build something together and then ultimately succeed in the long run.
Well, it also just has to suck to be running a team that is not head and shoulders better than everybody, but for the general part of the last 2 years, it was like the Celtics are the best team in the East. And here we are. For most of last year, it was the Celtics are the best team in the league. Right. And then until game 5 of the NBA Finals, we all thought that. And this year, the team just seems to have a little there's something going on, dude, and we can't just pretend like Ime Udoka getting in trouble for all the stuff he got in trouble for, or whatever, within the organization, a couple months before tip of the regular season doesn't have anything to do with that. I mean, it's only been a year. It hasn't even been a year since that stuff happened.
Right, and Woj came out and said, the locker room is still pretty taken aback by how everything ended with Ime Udoka there. The confusion or anger, whatever the case may be, but that's something that he reported. So I think we're going to know a lot more, and we're going to hear a lot more when this thing when it ends, and we expect them to get eliminated, whether it's Game 5 or Game 6 or even Game 7. We don't expect the Celtics to advance to their second straight NBA Finals. We think it will be the Boston Celtics, or we think it'll be the Miami Heat facing off against the Denver Nuggets. But we'll have that preview. We'll continue to react to this series if it goes long. We'll give our insights. We just wanted to check in now, talk a little bit about the Lakers getting eliminated, and now the Celtics, who stave off elimination for now, but could be on the brink and could be on the brink early.
It's good. It's going to be fun when we're on here in a week talking about how it's 3-3.
Oh man, that would be. Hey, at least we have more interesting basketball to watch. That's for sure. But
that's true.
All right. In the meantime, like, subscribe, and share the show. Whether you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and smash that like button. That helps us become more discoverable. Or whether you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other podcast platform where you listen, go ahead and rate us. Go ahead and send us in a comment, review, whatever the case may be. It really helps us out in the long run. Or stay connected with us on social media, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all the same at ISWIS_pod. We got a lot of stuff happening here. Football starting to fester a little bit. College football starting to get going, Tyson. We got under 100 days till week 0. So we'll start grinding on that. And obviously we'll have some more basketball discussions to get into with NBA draft that we absolutely smoked last year. As we're excited for this year, there is a lot of volatility and there could be a lot of things to take advantage of. So we'll start diving into things like that. We will talk to you all the next time. Until then, peace.